Hi, my name's Adam Ray on behalf of the Abundance Group. Thank you very much for logging into today's webinar. I'm sure you've already watched a couple of videos that have been sent through to you from our office, obviously introducing Ange, who is the owner and operator of the Abundance Group. So again, to keep this nice and short and sweet, hopefully we don't go too much over time. So we're looking at time frames about 15 minutes. So hopefully we'll keep you interested to see through to the end. But just a quick background on myself. My name's Adam Ray, as I just mentioned. I work within the finance and investment industry for over 15 years, specialising in finance and investment structures for investment purchases, because it is all about the numbers. And if the numbers don't work, it won't work. And as I mentioned, I've been doing this for a long time. And again, trying to keep this short and sweet and direct to the point. I facilitate these seminars on a larger scale that go for an hour with hundreds of people a couple of times a night all around the country on a weekly basis. So again, we just thought we'd put a short, sharp webinar together to touch on key points. Number one being mortgage reduction, tax, and in terms of investing, looking forward to your future. But just before we get stuck into the core part of this mini presentation, I just need to make you aware that any information that we do go through with you this evening is general in nature. It is not meant to be specific advice for any one person or individual. However, if any of the generic concepts that I do go through with you today are of particular interest to anybody watching in, you will be given the opportunity halfway through my presentation to click a link to obtain a quick 5 to 10 minute phone call with one of our licensed professionals to discuss these concepts in more detail. Now, of course, when we're looking forward, and as I mentioned, condensing this particular, again, the full size of the seminar, and with most people, when we do their goals and what they want to achieve short-term, medium-term and long-term, in most cases, the number one response, of course, is to pay off my mortgage. So again, that's one of the things we'll be looking at this evening and showing you some ways and some scenarios on how to get rid of that mortgage sooner rather than later. And of course, one of the other topics of short-term mortgage, long-term, a lot of people are looking towards retirement. So mortgage in the short term and retirement long-term. But probably one of the main points we need to look at before we look at either of those things is where are we now? And where is the country looking at where are they now financially? So again, one of the quick slides I'll just run through with you. Now, the Bureau of Statistics have been updating these numbers for over 20 years. And sadly, there's been no change. Still, for every 100 people retiring in this country, 63 out of 100 will end up dependent on some sort of pension, welfare or government handout. Very sad. 29 sadly will have passed away. 3 out of 100 retirement, forget it. They're just going to have to keep on working. With only 4 out of 100 retiring financially secure, with only 1 out of 100 retiring wealthy. 1 out of 100 retiring wealthy. Now think about that for a moment. 1 out of 100. Now, when I talk about 1 out of 100 retiring wealthy, I'm not talking about Bondi and Bentleys. The Australian government deems wealth in this country in retirement as an income of $62,000 per annum or $1,192 per week. So congratulations, you're all wealthy now, but potentially where we're going to end up once we reach our golden years. Now, what do I think about that figure there? $1,192 a week, for most of us, that's not going to provide us with the life of Riley in retirement. For most of us, that's just going to be getting by. What I'd like to also think about for a quick second is, if this coming Friday, you received your last paycheck, and as of next Monday, you are in retirement and you had to live on a quarter of your current working income, how would that make you feel? Would you be able to pay your rates, insurances, private health cover, dinner once a week, annual holidays, let alone down the track, maybe wanting to help the kids or the grandkids? Because sadly that day is coming, and for a lot of us, a lot sooner than what you may think. With just shy of 80% of retirees in Australia are living or existing on less than $26,000 per annum, under $500 a week. When I do these live events all around the country, I ask the question of the room. Is there anybody in the room that could live comfortably on under $500 a week? Not surprisingly, I never get a hand put up, ever. So why are we in this situation? Why haven't these numbers changed for over 20 years? When you think about the information that we have access to now, webinars, Google, I can assure you a lot of, I know where I grew up in Melbourne in St Kilda, or St Kilda in Melbourne, Victoria, they most certainly weren't educating children back then about saving for their future. You'd be hard pressed now. So again, why have these numbers changed? So when we're looking forward, why have they changed? For a number of different reasons. But for the most part, when I do ask these questions, people say, Adam, I'm just too busy. We're all trying to, again, keep our jobs, pay our taxes, educate our children. Of course, we're all got the luxury items. We're all too busy buying mobile phones for $1,000 for every member of the household. Want the biggest flat screen television. We all want Foxtel in every room. This year we might want to go on holidays to Cairns. Next year we want to go to Europe. But of course, if we don't start changing our mindset in terms of our financial situation now, it is going to have a huge effect on the outcome we achieve down the track. And just moving forward into that and drilling down a little bit further, what sort of money are we going to need to retirement? How much is going to be enough? And I always want a scenario, and I always like to ask live, and by all means, you've got Lockie sitting here, who's sitting here live, will be able to answer these questions for you. And please shoot through what you sort of think you're going to comfortably need to retire. But again, so we can keep moving on, and when I do these live seminars, I always run the scenario of $60,000 per annum you're going to need to retire comfortably. $60,000 per annum, whether it be a single person or a couple. How long do we need that money to last us for? How long do we need it to last us for? Well, fortunately, we don't have expiration dates on our birth certificates. I'll use 20 years in retirement. 20 times 60,000, going to need $1.2 million as a gross nest egg to retire comfortably. Now, some of you might say, well, that's too much, that's not enough. But interestingly, the Australian Financial Review reported not long back, the actual nest egg, gross nest egg, we're all going to need to retire comfortably with life expectancies and all those types of things is actually $2 million. $2 million is what you're going to need to retire comfortably. But of course, it's not all about the destination. We don't just start working at 18, 20, 25 after we've both done tertiary education. And again, there's throughout our working life, and it's not all about trying to save that $1.2 or $2 million. Throughout our working life, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we want to achieve. And we've got a great team of customer service and aftercare here at Abundance, and a part of their role therein, they send out hundreds and hundreds of surveys every year to people just like yourself watching from home. What are your common objectives? Not surprisingly, again, the number one response, pay off my mortgage. How much different would our life be if we weren't tied to a mortgage payment at the end of every month? Reduce personal debt. As a nation, we carry millions and millions of dollars of credit card and personal loan debt. Tax. Is there any volunteers to pay more tax? And of course, special projects. We want to renovate. We want to help our children, and we want to travel. Of course, in terms of where we want to go, again, in order to find that out, we need to spend some time with you or have a quick chat to you to find out where you are now, set some goals, find out what your goals are, what do you want to achieve in the short term, and what you want to achieve in the long term. In order to do that, what we're offering you part of tonight's webinar is the opportunity, hit the link below and log in a call over the next few days to have a chat with one of the licensed professionals from the Abundance Group. It's a quick 5 or 10 minute conversation just to see where you are now, where you want to get to at the end of the road, see if, again, there's some synergy there, we can help you moving forward. But of course, we're looking at where do we want to go? There's a few different ways we can get there. We can save some tax, and we'll have a look at some tax scenarios. We'll have a look in here. We've got a couple of different scenarios. Single person on $80,000 per annum. And what the purpose of this illustration is to show you on $80,000 single income, and they've got another scenario showing you 120 combined income, whether it be mum and dad, whatever the family situation is. Showing you how much tax they're paying now, and potentially how much tax you could save with the right structure and support moving forward by investing. But most importantly, investing correctly. Correctly, structure, ongoing support, very important. So we've got here, so let's call him Fred, the single person for the sake of the exercise. Income, Fred's on $80,000, single person, he's going to pay a bit over $18,000 a year in tax. But by investing, possible tax savings in 1 year, a bit over $7,000. After 5 years, a bit over $32,000 cumulatively over that 5 years, and over 10 years, watch this, of nearly $60,000 that Fred's going to save in tax. Think about that for a moment. What could you do with $60,000? That's over 50-60% of this particular single person's income they're going to be able to save over 10 years in tax. So let's move over to this side. Joint income, $120,000. Jointly, they're going to pay a bit over $34,000 in tax. In 1 year, Nearly $9,000 in savings, $8,829 in tax savings. After 5 years, over $37,000. After 10 years, $63,732 in tax savings cumulatively over that 10 years. Mortgages. Let's have a look at the old way of doing the mortgage scenario. This is the way our grandparents did it. Standard principal interest mortgage over 30 years. Savings account, income in, bills and expenses out, month by month, inch by inch over 30 years. We just keep paying that payment of the $250,000. But of course there are different ways of doing things. But let's have a look firstly at how much interest, the way our grandparents did it on a standard $250,000 mortgage. So again, as we mentioned before, month by month for 30 years they keep paying, but of course we know the banks operate for profits for the shareholders. Operate profit shareholder. So of course they're charging this particular scenario interest month by month for 30 years. So this poor customer here, who's been very diligent, paid diligently for 30 years, ends up with an interest bill of $261,000. This poor customer here, they paid off 2 homes, only end up with 1. Not very fair, is it? Moving forward, looking at offset accounts. Offset account, banks calculate the interest daily, charge it monthly. The more of your own money you have sitting in that, say what was formerly known as a savings account, now called an offset account, for every dollar you have sitting in here, when the bank wakes up at 1 minute past midnight, they're only calculating the interest on the outstanding balance. To keep it simple, $5,000 sitting in that offset account on a daily basis. Therefore, this customer here is only paying interest on $245,000 instead of $250,000. But again, right structure, right ongoing support. Yes, I do apologise, I do harp on about it, very passionate about it because it's what it all brings it all together, that structure and that ongoing support. So of course, one of the other things we need to look at, as I mentioned, we're going to look at mortgages, tax and investing. And some of you watching in this evening may already have a rental property. Those of you that don't, well, here's a quick generic scenario to show how the numbers stack up very basically and simply. Rental property purchase price, $470,000. Are we going to have additional costs? Of course we are. Stamp duty, solicitors costs, other setup fees and charges. So in this scenario, we're going to have a borrowing amount of $496,970. But of course, we're going to have weekly outgoings. We've got to pay rates. We've got to pay insurances. We've got to pay property management, interest payments, those types of things. In this scenario, $515 a week. Probably sitting there at home going, Adam, I'd like to be able to go out for dinner once a week for $100 and you're talking about $515 a week. Can't do it. Structure and support, of course. We're going to have a tenant paying $470 a week in rent. The old rule of thumb, $470 purchase price, dollar for dollar, $470 rent. We now only have to chip in $45 a week. And remember, in terms of, again, the right structure and support, we're going to have the tax man, he's going to chip in. He's going to save us some tax, get rid of our mortgage in a timely fashion, move us up the ladder. So as we can see here, the tax man's going to chip in $75 a week to help facilitate that in the short term and into the long term structure. And as we can see here with this scenario, we're actually going to be $30 a week better off. $30 a week better in our pocket, get rid of our mortgage in a timely fashion, save our tax, secure our future, move us up the top of the ladder. So now what do we do with these other 2 forms of income that we didn't have yesterday? Are we going to go out for dinner an extra 2 or 3 nights a week? Are we going to go take a second annual holiday? Of course not. We're going to put it into our mortgage and get rid of it sooner rather than later. So we can see here, we've got nearly $4,000 in tax deductions we didn't have, a bit over $24,000 in rent. We're going to drive all that into the mortgage, looking after you now and into the future to drive that mortgage down in a timely fashion. How much quicker do you think your mortgage would reduce with a bit over $28,000 extra flushing through that on a yearly basis? Offset account now with a rental property attached. As I mentioned earlier, some of you may already have rental properties. This is the way you've been shown. You're probably thinking, well, I've been using that scenario for a long time, but it's not actually getting my mortgage down the way I thought it would. Structure, ongoing support. Offset account, pay, rent, tax, that's all going in, bills and expenses out. And as you can see from this scenario, this customer's not actually paying interest on $250 or $245, but now they're only paying it on $242, $750. Of course, we want to get rid of that sooner rather than later. So let's have a look at the interest implications on that with the right structure. So we've got over here 250,000, 261 as we've seen here previously. But again, I know I'm harping on about it, right structure and support. This particular customer is only going to end up paying interest of $138,000, thus saving them $123,000 in interest. Powerful stuff, I know. And I mean, if you again can't recount back and hit the replay and watch up here from those tax slides before, $123,000 here plus the $60,000 that you can potentially save in tax. It's a hell of a lot of money. You do have to ask yourself, would you be able to save nearly $200,000 over 10 to 15 years? Would you be able to physically do that? For most of us, not possible. So how does that look inferred structuring wise? We've got home, bad debt. We've all heard of good debt, bad debt. Good debt being, again, we know, bad debt generally being cars, boats, jet skis and motorbikes. We're talking about this in this particular issue, your own home being the bad debt. You have to pay all the expenses yourself. There are no tax deductions, unlike a rental property that attracts both those things. We've got tax and we're getting rental income. So what are we going to do? We're going to drive all that income over into that home loan. Number one priority between now and when we retire, of course, to get rid of that home loan sooner rather than later. So now what do we do with this rental property that we particularly didn't want in the first place? Sell it, flog it, get rid of it, it's gone. And for the most part, a lot of people think, well, every accountant, every financial planner has always said to me over the years, once you finish paying your home off over here, leave your rental property on interest only on the never never and hope one day that increases in value. No, what we're saying to you is redirect that income back into that rental property, pay it off. You're going to be working for another 5, 10, 15 years, you've still got kids at home and those types of things. Why not make hay while the sun shines? You own your own home, number one priority sorted. Number two, get this paid off, create another income stream. It's going to be able to top up what you're currently doing with superannuation and all those other types of things. It's a multifaceted strategy to get you from where you are now to where you want to get to at the end of the road. And just talking about other forms of asset classes, something that's been very popular over the recent years is self-managed super. It's not something I'm going to go into any detail about in this particular webinar. Reason being, myself personally, I'm not licensed to go, although I'm licensed in mortgages, I'm not licensed to go into detail about self-managed super. But suffice to say, there's been a huge pickup. As a nation, we all want more control of our financial future, of our own money. We're all getting sick of watching the big end of town cut checks for billion-dollar profits, and all the while we go to the letterbox and look at our statement that's going south. We all want more control. Again, that's something, click the link, make a time, excuse me, one of the professionals from the office, being obviously an expert within self-managed super, will be able to touch base with you and explain your options. So just finishing off, how can we help you, and who should actually click the link and get a quite quick 5-minute phone call? If you want to pay your mortgage off, which I suspect most of you are being led to here through Facebook and other social media pages because you want to learn how to pay your mortgage off, please click the link and book a time in, 5 or 10 minutes, and have a quick chat, get a handle on where your situation is now and see if we can help you moving forward. If you want to save some tax, we all want to do that. Click the link. Some of you may already have rental properties that are sitting there at home going, well, I've already got my own home with a mortgage I can't jump over. I've got a rental property that's not paying off my mortgage anywhere near as quickly as your scenario. I've been doing this for a long time and I've seen it all over the country. People have their own home with a mortgage they can't jump over, rental property over here. Of course, life gets in the way because remember, we're all too busy on one of the previous slides. Please click the link and we'll get somebody to get in touch with you. Surely it's worth the 5 or 10 minutes of your time. I know we're all busy. You've taken the 15, 20 minutes out of your day to listen to me. So please click the link, worth 5 minutes. Thank you very much. And please click the link and hopefully we speak to you soon. Thank you.